Hello, my name's Cole. How you guys doing?
Cool, I'm Larry.
Okay. Alright, I did my senior project on wind turbine generators, and since my project's kind of heavy, I'll demonstrate it working after my presentation's over. So, the first thing I had to do was find a couple sources I could use to build my project with, and I actually ended up using a past student's senior project to help me build mine. I thought this was a good decision because I had some physical object I could go back to if I needed help or if I had any issues building my project. The other source I used was a homebrew wind power book, and basically it gave really detailed step-by-step instructions on how to build a generator that you could use with any type of wind turbine, whether it be horizontal or vertical. So after I got all my information together, I went out and bought some PVC pipe, and then I drug my old bicycle out of the garage and demolished it for the metal rims and ball bearings. And then I measured out where I needed to cut my PVC pipe. And after I got everything measured out, I was able to get 4 blades out of each PVC pipe. Okay, and this is one of the more frustrating parts of my project, getting the PVC blades connected to the metal rims. I didn't really have anything to square the rim up with the PVC blade to where it was straight, and then also the PVC was really flimsy, so it was kind of hard to straighten it. But after a little while we figured it out and got it all straightened out, and got all the blades on, and I realized that I didn't have enough blades to finish it. So I ended up leaving my project like this for a couple weeks while I worked on the other parts, and then I came back later and added the last blade on. Okay, and this brings us to the most frustrating part about my entire project, winding the coils for my stator. And you wouldn't think that this would be that frustrating of something to do, but the way I had chosen to do it made it really difficult on myself. In my homebrew power book that I showed you, it gave perfect instructions on how to build a coil winder with a hand crank, and it would have been really simple. And I ended up thinking that it would take too long to build the coil winder, so I just made my own little apparatus and trying to keep tension on both sides of the coil so it didn't unwind, and turning it and making sure the wire went in the right place as I was turning it just took me a long time to wind one coil. After about 20 to 25 minutes, I finished my first coil, and it's not perfect, but I felt really accomplished after I got that first one done. And I also wanted to point out, you guys can see that the center of my coil is actually rectangular. It's actually the exact size of one of my magnets on my magnet rotor. And in my homebrew power book, it actually stated that to get the best output that possible, to make the center of my coils the same size as one of my magnets. Okay, and this is where I went back down to the garage and I started measuring out where I was going to make my cuts to cut out my mold for casting my stator in resin. This ended up being a problem in itself because I couldn't find a compass that was big enough to draw 14 or 16-inch diameter circles. So I ended up finding a drywall cutter at a hardware store and used that to draw my circles because it went exactly out to 16 inches. So I got really lucky. And this is where it got really interesting because up until this project I really hadn't used power tools at all. So I was really worried that I was going to end up wasting all my plywood and not finishing my project. But I ended up getting it perfect on the first try. And this is my finished stator mold after I got it all cut out. And I ended up taking caulk and rubbing it around the edges of it and then covering it in linseed oil to keep the resin when I poured it in from seeping into the wood and making it impossible for me to get my stator out of it after it got cast. And then I went ahead and I built my rotor mold, and as you can see, it didn't go quite as well as the first mold did. I cut one side a little bit too thin, and I just did a little bit of a redneck fix on the one side and duct taped it I was worried that the resin was going to seep out the one side, but I caulked it up really good, and it ended up working out pretty well. And this is just a picture of where I put all of my coils in my stator mold to make sure that they were actually going to fit. And I was really happy that they all did, because I really didn't want to wind another one. And as you can see, all of the wires are really unneat and mashed together. I ended up wiring them in 3-phase star configuration, and that's this right here. And then cut off all the excess leads and cast it in resin, and it ended up looking a lot neater. And this is a finished picture of my stator. And in the same day, I decided to go ahead and cast my rotor in resin as well. And I haven't really talked about this much. For my rotor, I ended up using N42 neodymium magnets, and I was having issues on how exactly I was going to space the magnets around the circle evenly, and I ended up using the same basic configuration in analog clockwood. Because I have 12 magnets, I just put a magnet where each number would go on a clock, and it just seemed the easiest way. And after I got all of my pieces together, I went over to my uncle's nice warm heated garage, because at this point it's 10 degrees outside, and we ended up putting all of my pieces together. So the first thing I had to do when I got to my uncle's house was figure out how to hook my rotor to the actual part of my turbine that's spinning. And we thought about this for a little while, and I ended up deciding to just use giant zip ties because it just seemed the easiest way. Probably not the best, but it worked. And then the next thing I did was I made a base out of a car wheel rim, and then I welded a metal pipe up the middle of that, and then I welded a wheel hub on the end of the pipe, and then connected my ball bearing from the part of my wind turbine that's catching the wind to that, and that's what allows it to spin. At this point, it could produce power and spin, but it was really unstable, so I had to figure out some way to stabilize it, which I don't know if you guys can see very well, but I ended up making a steel frame out of pipe, and this ended up stabilizing it really well. And it wasn't falling over anymore. It still wobbles a little bit when you throw it really hard, but it ended up working out good. At this point, I took it to school a couple of days before it was due to be turned in, because I wasn't getting a very good voltage out of it. And so the next day after I brought it in, my instructor came in with an idea for me to try, and I went from a 2-volt max output all the way up to a 25-volt max output. And I did that by using 3 step-up transformers, and then I rectified it into DC. So, and that's about it. If you guys want to come over, I'll show you guys that it actually can output some electricity.
Don't count this walk time against this time.